right, let's talk a little more about the Middle East. Let's talk about Israel-Palestine. We can probably knock that out in just a few minutes and everyone will be satisfied, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
30 seconds.
30 seconds, let's do it. So I thought maybe the best way to do this, because I do know how much you know about history, where should we start with this? Because what I'm noticing lately is that, you know, as we're seeing the stabbings and the shootings and all this, the debate is rarely about what's happening right now, but now the debate's starting to be, the partition plan, the British mandate. Like now it's starting to be unfurled and people don't understand history, as we alluded to earlier. So where is a good place, if we're gonna have a decent discussion and try to get some common ground here, where is a good place to start with the Israel-Palestine situation?
I think the only place you can start is from where we are, really, and an acceptance that on the part of people who are broadly anti-Israel, an acceptance by those people that Israel exists and that it's not going anywhere. You know, I've spent a lot of time there and in the surrounding areas, in the West Bank and so on, and spoken with a lot of Palestinian representatives and so on. And one of the saddest things is when you hear them talk about the occupation and you discover they're talking about the occupation from 1948. Because then you say, you know what? You're giving your future generations no hope. You're selling them a lie. You're telling them that we'll get back Tel Aviv, you know, we'll get back the whole of Jerusalem, we'll get back Haifa, and so on. It's not going to happen. They're selling their young people a crock, and I think it's a tragedy. If they accepted that Israel's not going anywhere, and Israel felt confident enough that the Palestinians accepted that, then the negotiations for the border dispute are frankly quite straightforward. You can see that you can see them on the ground. You can see where basically you know the Israelis have won and basically where the Palestinians have won, and you can see that, you know, the basis for what's often been called the world's ugliest border. But you know, you have to start from the premise that Israel's not going anywhere, and I think it is one of the most striking things that in 2015, so many debates on college campuses and in the media and so on don't accept that fact. And, you know, if we had a conversation about Pakistan and we started by saying, you know, should Pakistan have been created or not? As a mistake, we wonder if we could rectify this error. You know, people would say, what are you talking about? It's 2015. Pakistan's got all sorts of problems we need to talk about. But why are we talking about this? This is a problem from 7 decades ago. You'd be a maniac. But on Israel, that's thought quite normal. Israel and Pakistan are the same age, and these crazy Israel obsessives keep going back to the basis, and they're not going to win. That's over. That's done.
So what do you make of these people? So, because I see that. I see very clearly. I try to tweet as much stuff as I can about coexistence. I want there to be 2 states for 2 people and understand that people can't live in occupation. And I want everyone to be treated with dignity and have the right to self-determination and all that. But I see nothing except on the left. All I see is just this relentless demonization of Israel, no matter what they do. Look, they left Gaza. There's not one Jew in Gaza. Hitler would love the place, right?
Yeah. No, you know, he'd feel right at home in certain ways there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the problem is that, by the way, when you say two-state, the two-state solution doesn't exist. It's dead. That's gone. The best you can hope for now is a 3-state solution, because it's in no one's gift to unite the Palestinians.
Right. So I wanted to ask you about that too, because it really is a 3-state solution.
Yeah. I mean, people should stop using the two-state idea. But you then have to ask some serious questions about the negotiating partners on both sides. Now, people like to say here, and again, the clever thing to say is, well, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and so on. It is simply not the case that the Israeli Prime Minister uses rhetoric about the Palestinians like the Palestinian moderate, so-called moderate leader, Mahmoud Abbas, has used in recent weeks about the Jews. You know, Mahmoud Abbas was talking about we don't want the filthy feet of the Jews on our holy sites. I mean, this doesn't even get very much coverage outside of the region. You know, if Benjamin Netanyahu had made a speech where he said, we don't want any filthy Muslim or Arab feet in our land, I reckon that would have made the front page of the New York Times. I think it would be being discussed. I think people would know about it.
Yeah.
Mahmoud Abbas does the most extraordinary incitement and the most extraordinary denigration, and all that allegedly right-thinking people in the West can do is to say, this is the man with whom you must do peace because he's not Hamas. I think that the world should concentrate less on the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. I think it's over-egged. It's got too much attention on it. None of the attention helps. There are intractable problems around the world, the Saharan question, the Western Saharan question, Cyprus, all sorts of ones. And actually, massive amounts of international opprobrium and attention do nothing to solve these conflicts. We have seen in recent years the motif of our time fall apart in the Middle East, and that was, and it was said by everybody from right and left throughout my upbringing at any rate, if you could only unlock the problem of the Palestinian-Israeli dispute, the rest of the Middle East will be solved. I heard this for years. Mm-hmm. Solve the Israeli-Palestinian border dispute and the economy of Yemen will boom, and the Iranians will see the point of gay rights, and the Saudis will understand, the potential utility of women in a society.
Right.
It was obviously nonsense then. But we've seen it's nonsense in recent years. We've seen it because the Middle East has managed to fall apart with zero Israeli involvement.
Yeah, so is that the bigger issue here, is that that we're really talking about a three-state thing because Gaza and the West Bank are totally separate, ruled by different people, and there's no reason to think that if Abbas signed an agreement that Hamas would abide by it. I mean, in their what do they call it? Their charter, it says kill all the Jews. So they're not going to suddenly change. So that's the strange part. As I see people in the West saying, well, just make a magical solution, and they'll stop wanting to kill you. But it doesn't seem like there's a connection there.
For those people, it's not about the Middle East. Most of the people, this Gulf, have never been there. They don't know anyone there. It's about them. It goes back to that point I made at the start. It's about them. If you say how concerned you are about this situation, you come across as virtuous and knowledgeable. Yeah. It's the idiot's way out.
Right. And yet there's one place in the Middle East that stands for their progressive values, and that's the place that they despise.
And now they use the progressive values against it. We're told that if you highlight the fact that, that in Israel, gays have every right they want, and that in every other country in the region you get hanged, people go, it's a detail. Why are you bothering? Why are you pink washing? Why are you doing this hasbara for them? You go, actually, for me it's not a detail. I mean, I mind whether I'm hanged or not. I mind whether other gays are hanged or not. I mind what their views are on a whole range of things. I mind that there's a difference between a society in Israel that's actually talking about what you do about IVF rights for lesbian couples, and a few miles away, lesbians don't get a look-in on the IVF treatment or anything else. I mind about that. These aren't details. But all these things that used to be the things we used to say were what we used to call things that matter, are now brushed aside as being, don't you bore me with all those facts you keep coming up with.